Why Catholics don't worship Mary, right? A lot of you, if you've had any experience with Catholics or Catholicism, everybody knows that Catholics love the Blessed Virgin Mary, right? We love Mary, we call her our mom, we think that she protects us, she looks out for us, right? Why do Catholics have so much passion surrounding Mary, right? In a lot of non-Catholic churches, it might seem kind of strange. Some people might even think it's almost like we're elevating her above Jesus or above God, right? Catholics are not doing that, okay? Catholics don't worship Mary. We pay her great reverence and great honor. Just like you keep pictures of your mom, probably, in your home, right? You're not worshiping her. You're not placing her above God, but you're showing reverence to your mother. Now, we also show a lot of reverence and honor to Mary because ever since the beginning of Christianity, people have done this. If you read early church fathers, for example, people like St. Irenaeus, St. Justin Martyr, even St. John in the New Testament, right? He describes Mary as the queen of heaven and earth in the book of Revelation. In his gospel, he very clearly makes allusions to Mary being like a new Eve of a new creation, right? The early church fathers saw this. They saw that Mary had a really important role in salvation history. In the book of Genesis, in chapter 3, it talks about a woman between whom God is going to put great enmity between her and her seed, right? And even the ancient rabbis saw this as a prophecy about the times of the Messiah. And in the days of the Messiah, who is that woman? It's Mary. We know that in the Old Testament, many of the early church fathers saw that Mary was like a new Ark of the Covenant, that in the Old Testament, the Ark of the Covenant held the manna from the desert, right? The heavenly bread. It held the tablets of the Ten Commandments, the law. It had the rod of Aaron, which was a symbol of the priesthood. Right? And so many of the early church fathers pointed out how Mary, right, contained Jesus in her womb, who is the new bread come down from heaven. Right? Jesus is the giver of the new law. And Jesus is our great high priest who entered into the sanctuary once and for all, right, as is mentioned in the book of Hebrews. So Mary is like a new Ark of the Covenant. Early church fathers also said that Mary was like a new Eve. Right? So just as in the beginning of time, death and sin and suffering came into the world because of the sin of Adam and Eve, so likewise in the new age, in the new covenant, Jesus is like a new Adam. He reverses everything that Adam had done. Just like Adam, Jesus didn't have a biological father. Just like Adam, he was conceived without sin. But unlike Adam, Jesus reversed many of the things that Adam did. Adam was afraid, right? He neglected his task of protecting his bride in the Garden of Eden. Jesus poured out his life for his bride on the cross. Adam was disobedient to God's commandment in the Garden of Eden, whereas Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane, despite all of his fear, proclaimed his obedience to God. Because of the sin of Adam, thorns came up from the earth, making it more difficult for man to till the soil. So likewise, Jesus was crowned with a crown of thorns. Right? All the early Christians saw this, and St. Paul even talks about this in the New Testament, that Jesus is like a new Adam. But what all the early church fathers saw is that if Jesus is a new Adam, surely there must also be a new Eve. Right? And that's Mary. If you read the Gospel of John, for example, in the first couple chapters, there's a series of 7 days that passed. And at the end of those 7 days, there's a marriage. Right? It's kind of an allusion back to the book of Genesis, the 7 days of creation, culminating with the creation of man and woman, of Adam and Eve. Right? And who's the first woman to be mentioned after those 7 days in the Gospel of John? It's Mary. She's seen as the new Eve. Jesus, as a matter of fact, in all of the Bible, right, he never calls her Mary or mother. He calls her woman, because that was Eve's name back in the book of Genesis before she sinned. Originally, that was her name. It was just simply woman. Right? All the early church fathers saw this, and it's been a part of Christianity ever since. Christians have always seen that Mary has a hugely important role in salvation history. And that if she was good enough for God to entrust his own son to, surely she's good enough for us to entrust ourselves to as well. Right? So we're not committing idolatry. We're not worshiping Mary. We're just giving her the same amount of honor that Christians have always done, even if it might seem a little bit strange to some modern Christians today. That's why we're so passionate about Mary.